I feel it's time to explain myself to my family, so here I go. One of the common phrases in AA is, "Are you comfortable in your skin?" After 2 years of attending meetings, my answer was, no. I still felt awkward and out of place. I had felt this way my entire life, but for the first time, I began looking inward, asking myself why. What makes me happy? What would make me feel comfortable? What could make me feel normal? The answer was tied to gender. It may sound strange, but the freedom to dress the way I felt was the key. I realized I had lived my life as a man, but inside, I felt the emotions and aspirations of a woman. Maybe I wasn't really a man. Yes, I was happy and felt at peace wearing women's clothes, with painted nails and long, flowing hair. When I'm called Maim, I feel comfortable in my skin. It took me 48 years to find this peace. Why is that so wrong? Did anyone notice how lonely and isolated I was as a child? Did anyone see the constant struggle I had to fit in? Did anyone notice my preference for girls' clothes? Did anyone realize how many hours I spent alone at the Bunker Hill Library? Did anyone pay attention to the books I checked out from the library bus when we lived in the Columbia Point housing project? I wanted to live in that French orphanage with Madeline and the other girls. A lot of my childhood is a blur, but I do remember consistently daydreaming about growing up into womanhood. I remember trying to hide my body. I'm not going through some midlife crisis. I'm not just reacting to the end of my 20-year marriage, I am finally confronting an internal struggle I've faced my entire life. Now, I have the freedom to live as I wish, and I am following my true self. I can no longer keep my soul hidden. Throughout high school, I was constantly confused, unsure of my sexuality, unsure of my gender. I daydreamed about disappearing and reappearing as a woman. I secretly wore women's clothes whenever I had the chance. Recently, I spoke to the only 2 girls I dated in high school. Jean, now in a long-term relationship with another woman, told me I would always have a place in her heart. She said I used to have a soft, gentle, almost feminine way about me, and she loved that. She was glad to see me embracing that side of myself again. She believed it had disappeared in Vietnam. I also had lunch with Mary Kane and Sarah last month. She said she's never seen me so relaxed. "You always were more like a girlfriend," she said. My closest male friend from high school hasn't spoken to me since I told him how I really felt about him. Did anyone notice how feminine I appeared during my last year of high school? Twice that year, I ended up in the emergency room after being assaulted because of my appearance. I felt free and happy wearing tight bell-bottom jeans, colorful shirts, and beads around my neck and wrists, with long hair all over my face. I was always on the edge of being my true self, but too full of shame and guilt to let my spirit free. That shame and guilt led me to join the army in 1969. I thought it would change me. I thought the army would turn me into a real man everyone would be proud of. In 1972 and 1973, did anyone notice how quickly that feminine side re-emerged? Did anyone see my internal struggle with my gender? For a while, I found happiness living as the woman I had always dreamed of being. But then, the shame and guilt returned. I was just a man in a dress. Many nights, alone on Cross Street, I cried myself to sleep. Was I a macho, beer-drinking Vietnam veteran, or was I becoming the woman I had always dreamed of? If I had been strong enough back then to put the alcohol down, the real me, the one I had hidden away, would have emerged. If I had listened to my inner voice, I would never have tried marriage as another attempt to be something I could never be. The drugs, some prescribed, some not, and alcohol kept me from connecting with the spirit that the goddess had placed in my soul. Did anyone see how lost I was, consumed by alcohol and drugs for the 20 years of my marriage? Did I ever seem happy during those years? Did I ever seem relaxed or comfortable in my skin? What is normal? I don't know. All I know is that for all those years, I felt out of place and awkward. Maybe that's what's abnormal. Let me try to define normal. It's when your outside matches who you are inside. When you hide who you are out of shame and guilt, that's not normal, it's abnormal. Since my early childhood, I've known that inside, I am a woman. My soul has always been that of a woman's. There are no words to explain the pain I lived with knowing this, believing that I had no choice but to live as a man. When I moved back to Massachusetts 2 years ago, I promised myself I would finally be true to who I am. Back to those AA sayings, to thy own self be true. The truth is, I am a woman, and I always have been. The first morning I walked into Dunkin' Donuts in clothes that felt comfortable, I felt my spirit release. No shame, no guilt. I was just being the woman I was born to be. If anyone was going to punch me in the face, I was ready to fight back. I felt like I was back in high school. I let my true self out to my VA doctors. I opened up to a gender support group. I got a new doctor in Boston. I went to my AA meeting with painted nails, long flowing hair, and just the right amount of makeup. I spent a year in Malden, Massachusetts, growing into the woman I always knew I was. In December, I moved back to New Hampshire as Sarah Josephine Carney. Sarah was the name on my checkbook, and Joplin's name was meaningful to me, so I adopted it. Josephine is what my mother called me when I was a small child with long, curly hair, so I took it too. I am Sarah Josephine Carney. Now, everyone in my life knows me as Sarah Josephine. It's just a name, but whenever I hear Sarah Josephine, my face lights up. Yes, that's me. I'm alive, and I'm happy. I don't hear John anymore. On the rare occasion that I do, it's like a flashback to a dark, lonely past. In my first year back in New Hampshire, my doctor put me on a hormone balancing treatment. I contacted Dr. Gray in Colorado, the doctor who would help align my body with my spirit. In my second year back in New Hampshire, I traveled to Colorado and had the surgery to finally align my body with who I truly am. Yes, it was an expensive and painful process, but it was worth every penny and every bit of the pain. I am at peace with my spirit. This has turned into a long letter, but I'm trying to explain my 50 years on Earth. My goal is to be a happy, middle-aged woman living in Clearwater, Florida by the time I'm 55. I no longer have shame or guilt about who I am. The downside is that my family carries a massive amount of shame and guilt about me. Why aren't they happy that the lonely, angry alcoholic is now a happy, sober person?